Why do growing businesses love working in Slack? Let's ask Christy at Ari Bikes.
Running things in Slack saves me so much time.
AI summaries save 97 minutes per week. What say you, Rox from Gosney?
Slack helps us build community, it helps us build connection.
Your partners, vendors and customers all in one place. Take us on home, Ashley from Caraway.
If we didn't have Slack tomorrow, I would explode.
Well, let's not let that happen. Visit slack.com/podcast to get 50% off Slack Business Plus.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So our orders get all backed up. We're drowning in paperwork, then actually drowning. Carol is fighting off sharks with a stapler, and pirates are pillaging the office copier, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant goes beyond the resume, using unique insights to deliver a smarter shortlist. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Mom, Dad, I'm not throwing shade, but the whole New Year's resolution thing, kind of slipping, no offense. Anyway, my best friend Jenny's dad, crushing it. He uses Blue Apron. He says he ordered one pan assemble and bake meals and these things called meal kits. They're all super easy to make. He keeps yelling, protein and fiber, baby. Also, the food, we tried it. So good. So maybe check it out or whatever. Blue Apron. Get 50% off your first 2 orders plus free shipping with code LISTEN50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Ronaldo back at Old Trafford this February.
Well, first of all, Ed, a ho-ho-ho and a Merry Christmas to you and all listeners. And when I say Christmas, I of course mean appropriate seasonal festival, or if there isn't one, just ordinary week that you're a bit annoyed that everyone's going on about. Yeah, horrible draw, isn't it? I mean, it's a draw packed full with narrative, that's for sure.
Yes, I rather suspect the narrative is one of United getting thumped, but hey, there's just a pessimist in me. United can't defend, so let's be honest. We're going to concede a few goals, unless Fergie goes, let's all defensive, but I'm not sure that's a winning formula either. So maybe a couple of 3-3 draws. What do you reckon? Do you think it's a Barcelona 99 repeat?
Or a Real Madrid, whatever year it was, repeat, except with a better ending. That'd be good, because one of the greatest Old Trafford fixtures ever, wasn't it?
Well, the year after, yeah, Ronaldo's hat-trick, Fat Ronaldo, that is, and United's attempt at a comeback and nearly snatched an equaliser late in the day, but of course they wouldn't have been good enough anyway because of the 0-0 draw at the Bernabeu.
I mean, listen, it's the worst draw we could have possibly got in terms of strength of opposition. I think in spite of the fact that Real Madrid are sputtering in the league at the moment, there's no question that Barcelona and Real Madrid are head and shoulders above where United and City, let's say, are at the moment, or really any club in any other country. I think, that because they're so much better than the rest of the Spanish league, it makes the Spanish league as a whole look weak, although Falcao, I guess, is doing his best to single-handedly disprove that theory. But actually, I think that, I don't know where United would finish in La Liga, but I'm sure we'd be guaranteed to finish third,
Yeah, look, that's a good argument, yes. I don't think United would be guaranteed to finish third. You're right, Barcelona and Real Madrid are ahead of United, but it doesn't mean that United aren't going to give Real Madrid a game. But you look at Real Madrid's squad and 1-11, it's very, very strong, isn't it? There really aren't too many weaknesses there. Maybe Arbeloa on the right back, you might say, is not of the same standard as the rest of the Real Madrid team, but that's not much of a weakness, and you suspect that United won't have much of the ball probably in both of those games. And the question mark about whether United can nullify Ronaldo is a big one, of course. But all the other attacking options that Real Madrid have, I mean, they have Modric has been playing in an advanced position under Mourinho. Ozil's not always in the side as a result. And what a player to have come off the bench if that's what they do. Benzema having a mixed season, but still a real threat. Higuain a real threat, and so on and so on and so on. They got so much quality right throughout that side that it's clearly going to be a really difficult tie for United. And clearly between now and then, nothing fundamental is going to change in United's approach or personnel or tactics, I think. So, I think we can probably guess at what the pattern will be. It's good that Vidic is back and he'll have 5 or 6 games before that tie in order to get fit, and that's going to be really important.
Absolutely, and I wanted to start talking about the narrative. There's the Jose stuff, of course, because all the talk has been about him taking over from Sir Alex, and the two of them make fluttery eyelashes at each other at any given opportunity they possibly can. But the big narrative issue is, of course, the return of Cristiano Ronaldo to Old Trafford, and it sort of draws into sharp focus United fans' somewhat mixed relationship with him. I really do think there's a unrequited X thing going on. A lot of Man United fans display a lot of love for Ronaldo, and I'm just not sure it's mutual. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe he has more feeling for the club than I suspect, but to me it's like he had a great time at United, did extremely effective work, and used it as a springboard to get himself the job in world football he really wanted, which was to be a player at Real Madrid.
I think it's probably a fair assessment, yes, and of course there's the on-off talk about Ronaldo wanting to move elsewhere. Part of that's contractual, I think. Part of it is the fact that he's under such an intense spotlight at Real Madrid. His relationship with the fans there hasn't always been a good one, you know. He's been criticised quite heavily, even scoring a goal a game. And so he's not getting the adulation and the massaging of his ego that he requires. So there's lots of things in this narrative, as you say. United fans, well, yes, I mean, his name is sung at many matches, or most, in fact, I think, and probably will be in the lead up to this game, which is an interesting one. And I think, in truth, United fans want him to do really well, don't we? Because, generally speaking, he didn't leave on bad terms, which is weird, really, given that he was, basically had a sulk for a while and managed to force his way out.
Yeah, and that's what I don't quite understand, and I think a lot of it has just got to do with the fact that he's absolutely amazing at football. I think a lot is blinded by how much, you said when you met Eric, you told him that he'd brought you more joy than anyone else on a football pitch, and I feel like there's a generation of United fans for whom that's Ronaldo. He's just a winning machine, isn't he? You got Ronaldo on your side, you're probably going to win. So many sins are forgiven if the player who you love with all your heart is going to win you the game all the time, so you kind of overlook it. And I've never quite got the adulation he receives when you separate it out from that winning thing. And I think that's because that's the root of it. It's not who he is as a person. Eric had that he's a larger than life personality and a sort of, which Ronaldo has as well, but in a very different way. I mean, he's a very petulant presence on the pitch, isn't he, Ronaldo? And he talked about that very interestingly in his interview that he did for CNN with Pedro Pinto. It was a sort of long-form interview, kind of interesting piece, and he comes across quite well and I imagine he's probably like a fairly decent chap who's just got an indecently sized ego, which you kind of need to drag yourself up by the bootstraps and become that sort of sports person, don't you?
That's all a fair assessment of things. One other thing that strikes me is it's all a bit pally, isn't it? When we think about the year before Ronaldo went to Real Madrid and Ferguson said that he wouldn't sell that mob of virus. Yeah. Since then, United and Real Madrid are, all best friends in world football, aren't we? Emilio Butragueño said today that it's a club we know really well. We have a great relationship. Here's Ferguson's quote, "It's a great opportunity for our fans to see Cristiano again and also for me to meet up with Jose. I'll need to order some good wine." It's like two boxers. They're not trash talking before the big fight. They're giving each other a hug. It just doesn't sound right, We want a bit more edge to this game, don't we? Surely. Maybe it's because everyone just expects Madrid to spank us.
Maybe, but then, I'm not totally... I definitely don't think we're going to get destroyed by them. I really don't, because I think Ferguson is too wily, too effective in Europe, will be managing his squad too well, and it'll be too important to him. But then, Jose's got nothing to play for except the European Cup, right? Because nobody cares really if he wins the Copa del Rey. Nobody's going to care that much if he wins that. The league looks like it's completely out of the question because they're 14 points behind Barcelona in December, and I'm not sure Barcelona have dropped 14 points in the last 237 years. So this is all he's got, and he's such a good manager when it comes to getting a result in the moment. If there's a big game that he's got to prepare for, he's methodical, isn't he?
He really is, and he's got the Indian sign over Ferguson in those really big games, hasn't he? Interesting other part to this story, of course, both on 2 European Cup wins, Ferguson and Mourinho. One of them may get a third this season. Well, maybe neither. But it'd be interesting if Mourinho does do one over Ferguson once again in this round. If he went on to do it, he'll have eclipsed Ferguson. Be a good time for Fergie to retire and Mourinho to take over, wouldn't it?
Maybe so. He's going to get a little backroom tour, isn't he, while he's there, I know it's been a while since you've been at Old Trafford, Jose. This is the home dressing room. That's where you all stand.
He just better not do the knee slidey thing if Madrid do manage to win.
I don't think he will, unless it's really dramatic. I don't think he will, because I think partly that was a thumb the nose at City, new money thing. I don't know. It doesn't feel like that's coming. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe all the kissy faces Mourinho has made at Manchester United in the last 2 years are influencing me. But yeah, Ronnie will be back, and he'll get a good reception from Old Trafford, as he definitely should. I'm not saying he shouldn't get a good reception, and I'm sure if we beat them, we'll be incredibly magnanimous towards him. But if they beat us, I don't know exactly how many blasts of Viva Ronaldo we'll get. I really think there'll probably be an element of the crowd that do want to sing and praise him, and an element of a crowd that don't. I'm sure it'll be one of those.
So what's a good result for United? A draw of some kind in the first leg at the Bernabeu, and bring him back to Old Trafford for a storming European night, and one of the rare occasions we'll get a fine atmosphere and a full house in European games, and turn them over at Old Trafford for one of those fabulous, memorable, historical nights.
Yeah, it sounds just about spot on to me. And hey, it's nearly Christmas, so we can but dream.
Indeed. So interesting ties in the rest of the Champions League draw, don't you think? Celtic and Juventus, that's a nice one for Celtic. Barcelona and Milan, they've only played each other 57 times in the last 2 years. New money, Paris Saint-Germain going to Valencia in the first leg.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame Ibra doesn't get to play against Barcelona, because we know how much he loves that.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. Borussia Dortmund, who are playing well at the moment, aren't they, at Shakhtar Donetsk, and Galatasaray Schalke, and Porto versus Malaga, the surprise team of the tournament so far.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's a bunch of really exciting ties in that, but there is really only one pick of the bunch, isn't there? And it's us against them. The two most glamorous teams in the history of world football, I think you could probably fairly say. It's such an exciting thing. I know it's ridiculous because, yeah, it's the hardest draw we could have got. But on the other hand, what's the point of liking football if you don't enjoy it when Man United play Real Madrid? Yeah, we'd love it if we didn't have to play them and all the other good teams knocked each other out and we got to play Schalke in the semi-final again. But it's not going to happen, and so let's enjoy it. Let's celebrate the romance inherent in Manchester United playing Real Madrid. We're going to have bug all else to celebrate.
Well, maybe. We'll see about that. Another side that plays in white and likes possession of the football, Swansea City.
Absolutely. So, Swansea away. Interesting stat that I saw somewhere today, which is that the Christmas fixture list tends to be an extremely good barometer. Form in the Christmas fixture list is an extremely good barometer of who's going to win the league. And no one has won all 4 of their Christmas period ties since Chelsea in, I think, 04-05. I can't remember which year it was, but, one of the years where they won the league. It's going to be it's a really tricky period, and you'd have to say that probably the hardest tie of all of them is that first one, because Swansea have, well, apart from apparently being the next destination for David Villa, they're a fine football club, aren't they, at the moment?
Yeah, I can't see that particular piece of speculation coming off somehow. They are a fine football club. They're still playing good football under Laudrup, change of manager, but not a change of philosophy. They're outperforming their budget. They've done it very sensibly. They're debt-free. They're partially owned by fans. They're a good model for a community club that's doing well and progressing organically, right? So there's much to admire in what Swansea have achieved, and they play nice football. In Michu, they've got a real find, haven't they? A couple of £1 million for him, and he's scoring for fun. And of course, it's going to be a tough tie for United. You'd still expect, in current form, United go there and score some goals. Might concede some at the other end, of course, as well. As for the fixture programme, interesting that United has, I read some other stats about this, United's performances in the Premier League in December are better than anyone else's over the last decade, right, by miles. This is a period when United traditionally has outstanding results. We can pick a few out that have gone all very pear-shaped. I'm sure you remember some famous ones, but generally speaking, United plays well in December, and it's a key period. And looking at the fixtures, yes, okay, there's some tricky ones in there, but also lots of winnable ones. Swansea, Newcastle, West Brom, and then Wigan on New Year's Day before the cup tie, Okay, it's rare that a team will go and win 4 games. It's hard to say that because, the way United concede goals means that a defeat is staring us in the face at some point. It's just the nature of that kind of high-risk strategy. But United could also go win all 4 of these games, and I think that would give you the Reds a pretty commanding lead in the Premier League going into 2013 if that happens. Big if and big but, of course.
Yeah, of course. It's really hard for me not to say at this point, I like big butts, and I cannot lie. I feel like, I don't know, when I think of Swansea away, to me, that's in the top 4 or 5 most difficult fixtures, maybe not 4 or 5, but definitely in the top 10 most difficult fixtures in the calendar.
So Swansea's problem is they do concede goals at home.
Yeah, right.
You know, so they are open at home, and as a result, you know, they've got a mixed record, and so it should suit United because it's going to be a nice open game.
Yeah.
Who scores the most? Maybe it'll be a 0-0 after that, but it says who's going to score the most goals all over it. And okay, so it's difficult and they've got firepower, but we've got more and it's more difficult for them.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Michu's going to score 3 and Robin van Persie will score 4, and it'll be really exciting. I mean, Laudrup's a fantastic job because he has slightly adapted them, and they do play a modicum more direct than they did under Rodgers and Martinez before that. And, you know, a lot's made of the way Swansea play, and I do think it is brilliant. They are the absolute model for how to improve a club. Stability in the managerial positions, managers have left rather than been sacked. Very bold decision to appoint Laudrup, but one that seems so far, it's very early days yet, but to be a pretty impressive decision. And the signing of Michu's obviously just a moment of inspiration, because there isn't a better value signing in world football last summer, is there?
Probably not. Interesting that we're playing Swansea in the week that FA Premier League chairman have basically agreed that there will be some form of financial fair play regulations in the Premier League. And of course, you know, there were 2 clubs voted against it, Manchester City and Fulham, both heavily funded by owners, and everyone else voted for it. Now, the details haven't been worked out, but I've heard arguments that this just locks in the establishment and the status quo. And in a way it does, right? Because it means that as a small club you can't just go, you know, splurge a load of money on building a team and take the risk to get success and then drive revenues that way. But do you know why? It's because it doesn't work. Clubs go bust when they try and do that, you know. It's okay when you've got Abramovich's deep pockets or Sheikh Mansour, but most clubs who try and do that eventually find that it doesn't work. They can't drive enough revenues to justify the spend. So the model for growing is an organic one like Swansea. You can also go and build a new stadium, which is exactly what Swansea have done, so they can increase their revenues like that, manage to build a team good enough to get into the Premier League. They establish themselves there, and next year, look at the numbers for Swansea, they can go double their spend on players and revenue, you know. And it doesn't mean that of course they'll double their league position or their points tally or anything like that, but you know, they're going to grow at the right rates. It's very unlikely that Swansea will, unless they, you know, make a bad appointment after Laudrup or Laudrup goes off the boil or something, it's very unlikely they're going to get dragged into the relegation positions any time in the next few years, because they've done it in the right way. It's a very sustainable model.
And talking of sustainable models, after Swansea, we get to play a team that values managerial stability above all else. The man with the 8-year contract is rolling into town. Pardew's black and white stripes.
God, it is funny, isn't it? It really is funny because obviously the owner there likes firing managers, doesn't he? You know, he's gone through a few, and Mike Ashley is almost been the model of Newcastle's instability over the years, you know, for a club that generates so much support, and it's a one-club town, and the ground's right in the centre of town, and, you know, it's very accessible for fans and all that kind of stuff, and you kind of think of them as a bit of a comedy act sometimes, and then Ashley's followed in that tradition, and then suddenly he gives an 8-year contract to Pardew after one good season, and it's all kind of blown up in their face now, you know, they're 2 points above the relegation zone, and it doesn't look like they're getting points anytime soon.
No, although, you know, the thing about this Christmas fixture period is I keep looking at it and going, yeah, that looks like we should win it on paper, but I'm worried that might be a bit of a banana skin. I feel like that about all the fixtures, all 4 of them, in fact, because, like, if it comes to it and we beat Newcastle 5-1, I wouldn't feel like that's a massive shock, probably an unfortunate scoreline to bring up, actually. Oh no, was it 5-0, the Albert chip? It was 5-0, wasn't it?
It was.
Let's not think about that. And of course, part of a key poor game last season, wasn't it? The 3-0 loss away to Newcastle.
That which came so soon after the Boxing Day loss to Blackburn Rovers at Old Trafford. So yeah, of course we shouldn't count any chickens or points just yet. Looking at City's fixtures gives United a reason for really going for it this December, though, because City play Reading, Sunderland, Norwich and Stoke, you know, so they could rack up a whole bunch of points as well. Although their trouble on the road this season is interesting, so they go to Sunderland and Norwich, and you know, you definitely see points being dropped in those 2 fixtures.
Yeah, but you can equally see them just getting it together and turning up. I feel like that about the City.
So what we're saying is United could win or lose all 4 of their fixtures, and City could win or lose all four of their fixtures. It's that kind of, analysis that you pay for here at Rant.
The thing about it is, though, I think that after all the hype, all is said and done, everything's going on, I reckon we're going to come out of it about the same distance away from City that we are at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised if it's within a point or two, the amount of points that both teams pick up over the course of the games, Newcastle, interesting position there, and they've got players coming back from injury, and they have been a little unlucky, but the whole Bar Cisse thing is absolutely fascinating, and talking of analysis, an actually useful, interesting piece of insight from Alan Shearer on Match of the Day. Admittedly, it was about Newcastle United strikers, which, if he was going to have a specialist subject, that should be it. But he was pointing out just how far they play away from each other on the pitch and how little link-up there is between the two of them. And it is weird how one of them's scoring, then the other one's scoring. We talked about Berbatov and Rooney being a bit like that at times when they were United's top two strikers. But with Bar and Cisse, it's turned up to 10, and Bar completely stopped scoring when Cisse arrived last season, and now Cisse's stopped scoring and Bar's banging them in.
That's because Pardew doesn't feel like he can play both of them in forward positions at the same time. So one of them's always on the wing, and it's a very square peg in a very round hole, isn't it? He might as well just drop one of them and play a wide player. It'd be better for the team, but he doesn't feel like he can, because if he does that, he's going to lose one of them, and he wants to keep them both.
Yeah, well, I don't think Demba Ba is particularly interested in staying if the quotes of like, oh yes, Arsenal would be a dream club, and also, by the way, I'm not that expensive. You seen this clause in my contract? $7.5 million, you can afford that. Come on, lads, sign me up. We're yet to see whether the January madness brings further craziness to Newcastle. I was saying on last week's Rantcast, the whole thing about managerial stability and what's so difficult is how you pick the man that you want to be the stable hand on the rudder. And I'm not sure Alan Pardew's ever been the right answer to that question.
No, it always felt like he lucked himself into that job.
Yeah, absolutely. And then got quite lucky in the immediate aftermath. Like, made some really, really good signings who all worked out, for a season.
Well, that's the two fixtures coming up. Look, they're both winnable for United, and God, what an opportunity this is, though. It really is. I wouldn't have picked United to be 6 points in the lead coming up to halfway through the season at all. I didn't see it. I really didn't, and I thought City would progress from last season. They've regressed quite markedly, and there's all sorts of trouble at the club. It feels like, as we spoke about last week, manager and players have driven a wedge between each other. Balotelli may have accepted his humongous fine, £350,000 or something. It's probably a couple of days worth of fine, but all's not quite right there, is there? And he could well be off in the winter transfer window. Lots of talk about him going back to Italy, so it's a great opportunity for United to pile under pressure. We thought Mancini and City were cracking up last season. Hey, there's pressure on already. It's very early in the season.
I think, in terms of our relative position, I don't think either of us thought Van Persie would make quite as much difference as he's made to United's results. I mean, that's my take on where we both stood when he was signed. I have to say, I don't think I realised how good he was.
Quite a lot of people have said that, yeah.
I mean, it's partly red-tinted specs or whatever, but I think mostly it is legitimately the fact that I don't really watch a lot of football outside of United, so haven't really seen him play a lot of full 90 minutes. So his link-up play, his ability, he's an incredible class of player. And yeah, as I say, I'm not sure I really knew quite how much he brought to the table.
Yes, loads. It'd be interesting, of course, with Kagawa coming back, exactly how that dynamic works now. I mean,
let me just interrupt you for a second, Ed, to say that it's a nice segue into the extended Twitter questions section of the show this week. And the reason I interrupted you to say that is because easily the number one question, the new what is Phil Jones's best position, coming in from @DJones632, @TheBoysSlow, @TheBoysSly, and @Tushar_MUFC, all asking, what do we do with Kagawa in our current setup?
Well, I think Phil Jones could play in midfield, but he's better as a central defender. I don't know that there's an easy answer here, and I think it's a bit of that Pardew with Bar and Cisse. It'd be really easy to try and crowbar everyone into the side and make a bit of a mess of it. So no, the options as I see it is Kagawa plays at 10, Rooney goes wide. That's not great, is it? Rooney plays at 10, Kagawa goes wide. Kagawa plays at 10, Rooney and Van Persie play up front as a 2, and United go to a narrow midfield. That's another option. I don't really like the shape there, and it's a bit un-United, isn't it? And it hasn't always worked for United this season. Or Kagawa sits on the bench, and that's no good for him either.
Yeah, I mean, the one great advantage is that there are fantastic rotation options, but that can cause problems all of its own, can't it? Because, you know, you've got 4 games in the space of a week and a half or whatever it is, then yeah, it's great that you can drop Rooney to the bench for one of those games and put Kagawa in there and still have a really effective setup, potentially. But then how do you make sure all those players are in form at the same time? Because it works on paper, but players not playing week in, week out tends to be very detrimental to their form unless they're Chicharito and can just turn it on from the bench.
Right, and I don't think Rooney's that kind of player. He needs to play most games, you know. You really want Rooney in, 85 to 90% of the games that United played this season. I don't think it does Kagawa any good if he's on the bench. I don't think he does him any good at all. He's still trying to settle into the English way of things, and an extended period warming the bench isn't going to do him much good. But hey, there you go. It might have to be the case, because Rooney and Van Persie have got such an excellent partnership at the moment, and it's working in an attacking sense. Now, of course, there are questions about midfield and its knock-on effect in the defence, but Kagawa's not going to solve that one either. It's not as if you're going to play him in a 2 in central midfield.
No, not at all. I mean, when he first came into the side, and he was really exciting, and Beautifully Red gave him Player of the Month for August, and he really did light the place up, didn't he, at first? And there was a lot of very high amount of potential shown to unlock defences, all that sort of thing. But that was when we just signed Van Persie and it was all settling in. And actually, in Kagawa's absence, a very nice rhythm has been established by our attacking side. And you said right at the beginning of the season, when we were talking about Van Persie signing, something's got to give. There's got to be a sacrifice made to make this work. And at the moment, it looks like the logic is to sacrifice Kagawa. By whether that's to the bench or to play the Ashley Young role, I don't know. But if he does play the Ashley Young role, it's all sorts of pressure on Evra and, United's porous midfield, because he's not a defensive-minded player by any stretch of the imagination, is he?
Well, no, certainly not, I know. And as I said, I don't think playing him in that role is particularly effective. I mean, when he plays for Japan in that role, he really doesn't, if you've seen any of Japan's game, he really doesn't do the tracking back thing and covering his fullback, and it's not his game. Why should he? He's a forward, basically. He plays in a wide forward role and comes off the touchline and tries to create from there, much as Zidane did when he was at his pomp and played in that sort of position too. So he's not a traditional winger. He won't give United any width. United will necessarily end up playing quite narrow if they play with him in that position, and it limits him too. I think he's about 75% of the player, and I think he can be a very fine player in a very specific role. And the trouble is, we have Rooney, who's also a very, very fine player and playing a specific role. So, we'll see how this one shakes out. There are still options, and of course there are loads of games, but I wonder whether it's not going to be Kagawa who suffers most out of that.
It's interesting because the other person that might suffer is Rooney, because he's so flexible. Like, you can imagine Ferguson playing Rooney behind Kagawa as part of the midfield proper, which obviously isn't going to suit anyone, but you can see it happening. And I think the Christmas fixture list, the thing that worries me most about that is rotation and how we make it work, because at the moment I am really confident in our sort of first 11 as it's been shown in the last couple of games, but when you start really twisting that tombola arm, then it gets a bit messy. And talking of the tombola arm, at MUFC Jeff asks whether we'll be reading the Harvard paper on Sir Alex Ferguson. Not sure he mentioned his number one managerial technique of chucking all the names in a hat and picking them out one at a time, but he's gone to America to show him how to manage, and in fairness, who better to ask?
I wonder whether Ferguson quite got it. I mean, he said some very interesting things afterwards. I read the piece that Harvard released, and Ferguson was very, very interested in the process and very complimentary about the students, and he obviously made a very big impression on them. Of course, management school is all about theories of Six Sigma and lean and agile management and blah 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 and all of that kind of stuff. And I don't think Ferguson had a management theory in his life. He does it entirely by instinct.
But then, I mean, that's, if you're a student of business, the level of success he's achieved without that is fascinating in and of itself, right?
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely.
Because then it's the statesman versus the systemic view of history. It's like whatever systems and theories you're applying, it's the people that put them into practice. And football management is, is much more common in terms of the people that are lauded as football managers are not the people that have implemented a system beautifully, but the people who've been extraordinary individuals. And he has been that. It's really interesting to see him in that context. And, you know, you were talking about the Glazers giving him a stand and a statue and, you know, come on lads, you know, it's all right, your time's up now, Sir Alex. And you can't really imagine Sir Alex 5 years ago having gone to Harvard and taught a class on that sort of thing. What do you reckon?
No, maybe that's the thing. He's getting towards the end of his reign, and he's going to take all the plaudits he can and start giving some back.
And they're incredibly well-deserved plaudits, you know,
of course,
because he is a phenomenon of management.
Of course. You know, he's the antithesis to AVB, isn't he? You know, AVB is all stats and process and modern management, I suppose, and modern management in the wider sense, right? I don't mean football management, and probably would do very well in his MBA course, you know. Ferguson is not that at all. He's Steve Jobs, and he's been absolutely brilliant and a complete bastard all at the same time.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to go through some proper grown-up, serious football-related Twitter questions for a bit. At Red Heart United asks a question which I think is sort of interesting. If you could only keep one of Rooney or Van Persie, who would you keep?
I suppose Rooney, being the all-round player, is a tough one, of course, you know, given that he's not very likeable, and Van Persie's flavour of the month. But he's younger, he's a more flexible player, I suppose. But hey, good job we don't have to actually make that decision, isn't it?
I would go with keeping Rooney as well, although at the moment I'm kind of enjoying watching Van Persie more, but I think Rooney's underappreciated because he's such a great big silly head from time to time, and because he occasionally goes off the boil. But like the amount he's produced at United over the years, it's pretty huge, isn't it? At Neurosis says, are we all now kind of hoping that Ronaldo does go to Paris Saint-Germain in January? And also, can he please come home? He's never coming back. He is never coming back to play for Manchester United.
Yes, Saint-Germain is probably one of the very few clubs who could actually afford him. I can't imagine he'd go there. Why would he? What's the point? No, he's not coming back to United, ever. Yeah, let's close that one. Next!
At Mbets asks us to have a discussion about United's reluctance to implement safe standing. Interesting to see Manchester City coming out in favour of that, and I thought that was brilliant. You know, a very interesting sort of thing from, you know, the new city to be so fan friendly.
Yeah, they are quite fan friendly, and they offer cheap tickets and have quite a community scheme. I guess there's some politics involved, and of course Gill's on the FA board, and they've been very reluctant to look at this one at all over the last 20 odd years, and for understandable reasons, of course. But you know, it works perfectly well in Germany with massive crowds. It would add quite a lot to the Old Trafford atmosphere. I'm personally hugely in favour of it. I don't think anyone who doesn't want to stand, doesn't have to. We're not talking about the whole ground or 2/3 of it as it used to be. It'd be one section, and I think it would add a lot to the atmosphere at United and add something to those people who want that. It would increase the amount of people that could get into Old Trafford. Not much, because safe standing is quite a controlled environment. But yeah, it's a shame that the debate isn't really happening. I don't think we're very near to that ever being implemented in the UK.
I think we're slightly nearer, like incrementally a tiny bit nearer that a proper serious discussion happening about that. You know, I mean, it's such a dream, isn't it? If the Stretford End was all standing, Old Trafford would be transformed, and it would be brilliant for the brand, all that stuff. You know what I mean? All the knock-ons. Obviously, it's brilliant for the people who are actually in the ground. That goes without saying. But they're having a pretty good time anyway because they're in the ground. You watch it on TV, and like, if the Stretford End's all standing and the atmosphere that's being generated, it's going to be, it's a completely different spectacle, isn't it?
Well, I'm of the age that I stood regularly on the Stretford End, and it was a great experience as a result, and football is much more sanitised for not having that.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely against football being sanitised, because I think terrace culture has enormous problems, many of which are still being felt, not the least of which is the inherent tribalism in terrace culture, which doesn't really do society too many favours, I don't think.
I don't think that's changed by having people standing, to be fair.
No, exactly, and that's like, I'm just saying that the sanitisation of football, it's only skin deep, isn't it? The roots of terrace culture run much deeper than the attempts at gentrification. Why are United so politically opposed to it? Why is the FA? Is it because it's such a high risk? Because if something goes wrong once, then you've killed a bunch of people, basically.
and the history, right? I don't think anyone expects anything to go wrong because it's a model that works in Germany just fine, you know. There were some very specific circumstances that allowed Hillsborough to happen, you know, decaying ground, terrible policing, all the stuff that's come out in the recent Hillsborough report. That's not going to be the case with the safe standing regime, you know, not at all. I mean, modern stadiums, slightly more modern policing methods, though you've seen the GMP in action, you know, you ask the question about that, but very controlled amount of people that would be in per segment, better systems. It's just not unsafe. It's just not. And so yeah, politics, and that's why United probably wouldn't be in favour at this moment. You know, who knows? That might change at some point.
That's enough serious stuff. It's time for some Christmas all up in this business. At Jack Hawkins 23 asks, if you could spend Christmas morning with any Manchester United player and his family, who would it be?
It'd have to be Paul Scholes, wouldn't it? You know, nice little low-key family Christmas.
That'd be good. A low-key family Christmas would be fun. I don't know. I reckon that Phil Jones' Lancastrian Christmas could be pretty good as well. Some good carols sung at the Jones house. He'd pull some amusing faces while he was opening his presents, of course. And I like the idea of Christmas at the Ferdinands, where all the different wrapping paper has just got the number 5 on it. So all 5 branded Christmas wrapping paper, and a little tiny Santa hat on top of the Christmas tree with a little 5 on it. Anton Alfie asks, how will Fergie react when he sees the video of himself dancing Gangnam Style that Alfie's in the process of making? I think favourably. That's what I expect. I have to say I've seen a little sneak preview of that. I'm very looking forward to the real thing. But one of the more important questions of the week, at Uhibok, that's UHIBBOK, asks whether, in a variation of the classic duck-sized horses or horse-sized ducks that I've heard on many podcasts since it appeared on ours, it's almost like someone's trying to get it out there, asks whether we would rather fight 10 normal-sized Nemanja Vidićs or 100 Labradoodle-sized Nemanja Vidićs.
Neither. I'd rather just sit at home with Paul Scholes and his family opening Christmas presents.
I think that you're going to lose either way. There's no question about that. So I think it's like what's least worst rather than what have you got the best chance of winning. Because Nemanja Vidić, if there's 100 tiny Nemanja Vidićs, Labradoodles are not that small, you know. So that it's still a sustainable amount of impact can be created. And there's only so much kind of swinging and throwing them away you could do before they overwhelmed you.
Yeah, I can't believe you're actually giving this some analysis, really.
I think it deserves it. Essentially, what I'm saying is go for the 10 normal-sized Nemanja Vidićs because it'll be over quicker because you're going to lose anyway and it'll just be a cleaner for you get knocked out, the fight's over. I think that's the way to do it.
Very good.
At Ammon Palman asks, other than Anderson or Wayne Rooney, who could put away the most mince pies in the Manchester United dressing room?
Phil Jones.
Again, you're right. You're so right about that. That's definitely the answer. Yeah, I reckon Rio could get through a few as well, though.
Well, of course, it depends. If they were Sainsbury's finest, you know, the ones with the brandy in,
yeah,
Fergie would be right at them.
If they're the Heston Blumenthal ones, which have got some orange in, then Rio might be convinced that they were Jaffa flavoured, and he could then definitely demolish a bunch. But I think your first instinct is correct. Phil Jones clearly. And a dark horse, I reckon Nani could get through a few mince pies if he really put his mind to it.
Well, before we move on with a couple more Twitter questions, we've had a couple of rant backs this week, including this one from Awate.
Hello, Ed and Paul. My name is Awate, and I'd just like to ask you guys, which football players would be which comic book characters? For example, I think it's very obvious that Roy Keane would be Wolverine from the X-Men. Please give me your suggestions and elaborate.
So, Paul, United players and comics, not really my area. Thoughts?
Well, on the subject of Phil Jones, who we were just discussing, clearly Superman, always there at the last minute with the swooping intervention that was needed. Paul Scholes is Batman, using the fact that he doesn't have any actual superpowers, forced into making better decisions than everyone, seeing things more clearly than everyone else, exploiting the space better than anyone else does. That's obviously the answer. Roy Keane, no longer with us, but definitely in the role of Wolverine, a man not ever comfortable in his own skin, but nonetheless having superpowers and being able to put them to the use for the greater good. Spider-Man, I think with great power comes great responsive and perceability.
Terrible.
I think Robin, he has that nice guy vibe that you get from Spider-Man.
Surely Robin goes with Batman.
Yeah, but there's no one less Robin-like than Robin Van Persie, you know. Robin Van Persie is no one's second fiddle. So I think he's clearly Spider-Man. Michael Carrick. I'm trying to think of a slightly underrated superhero who nevertheless does the job really effectively. Maybe a Nightcrawler, someone like that. and Nemanja Vidic, the Hulk. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it?
Oh, very good. We have another one, which is a little more serious. This is from Gaurav, who asks whether Ferguson's decision not to strengthen United's midfield is underrated.
In the week where Sir Alex has been lauded by Harvard grades for his management and planning, do you think that some of the criticism that he gets for his failure to see the weakness in our midfield is fair? Leaving the Glazonomics aside, don't you think that Fergie has shown time and again that he's ahead of the curve? He pursued Hargreaves for a long time. Hargo was meant to be the nasty midfield player that we needed. I think Sir Alex realized this at least 3 years before anyone else did. The fact that Anderson decided he didn't want to be a footballer or that Hargo was always injured isn't Fergie's fault now, is it?
It's an interesting point in that one. Did Ferguson actually get it right when he signed Owen Hargreaves and Anderson and just got unlucky? Hargreaves being injured all the time and Anderson just not having the appetite to be a professional footballer.
You said appetite there, Ed. I couldn't help but notice.
Yeah, I think when you consider that he's had quite a bit of time to fix this problem, then no, I don't think he's just been unlucky.
I mean, I think that's the key point, isn't it? I do agree that Owen Hargreaves really was the answer at one point, you know. He really was the signing that we were missing, and he made an enormous difference at first, and that's why he became such a huge favourite so quickly. So obviously, taste has become bitter as he left us and went to City. But I think the key fact is he hasn't addressed what went wrong. Maybe that's partly financial, but if it is partly financial, Ferguson's, culpable in that too.
Yeah, Ferguson said this week, no transfers this winter. He also gave an interview in which he said there is no value.
He loves it. He absolutely loves it.
I think he's actually taking the piss now. I think he's actually winding us up just for a bit of a Christmas prank.
Michu was £2 million.
Bless you.
I'm impressed with that. That was fine work. At Mango_Carrot, talking of fine work, if a United player had to have Cheick Tiote's hair, who would it be and why?
Well, Anderson almost has, just it's not bleached.
I think I would quite like to see Cheick Tiote's hair on Phil Jones's head. I know he's been the answer to every question this week, but normally he's every question, so makes a nice change. Scalzi.
Fergie.
That's it. That's the default correct answer. Well done. Looking back on the season so far, asks at bifurcated_MUFC, who from Manchester United squad should be on Santa's nice list and who should be on the naughty list?
Good question. The naughty list is obviously Nani, because he's on Ferguson's naughty list.
He's number one on the naughty list.
He's definitely in the naughty corner. He won't be getting any presents this year, unless it's a transfer. I'm not sure that's a present, really.
No.
On the nice list, Raphael.
Yes.
What a storming year he has had, eventually. Great progress from Raphael, and he's becoming the defender that everyone really wanted, And of course, Robin van Persie, because he's been absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely. Slightly on the naughty list, apparently, is David De Gea for some reason. For a mysterious reason, Santa Fergie has got De Gea on the naughty list.
Well, he tortures small animals in his spare time.
Oh, right. Well, that makes sense then. Final question comes from our very good friend at Beautifully Red, and a similar version of the question was also asked by at DJones632. Cast the Manchester United Football Club nativity play from the current squad. So, I think you've got to go for... first of all, we've got to address Phil Jones first. Definitely a shepherd. No question about that. 3 wise men. Well, definitely 2 wise men in Skulls and Gigs. Who's getting the coveted third wise man role?
That'd be Michael Carrick, wouldn't it?
Yeah, okay, that's good, I like it. And Michael Carrick might be Joseph, actually, though, because it's a very important part of the story, but no one really talks about him. So I think we'll give Carrick Joseph and make Fergie be the third wise man.
Of course, Giggsy couldn't be the Virgin Mary because, there's nothing immaculate about Giggsy's conceptions.
So we've got Phil Jones as a shepherd. You need another couple of shepherds in there, don't you? Chris Smalling and make a decent shepherd. No reason why not. Robin van Persie as the anointed one, I think, at the moment. I think Robin van Persie plays the baby. Or maybe the Archangel Gabriel, actually. I quite like that. Van Persie's the Archangel Gabriel.
Chicharito's still the baby, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, okay. But then again, Chicharito could play the Virgin Mary, you see, because he's got that purity of heart that many of the rest of our team so clearly lack. And
Ferguson is quite clearly God.
No question about that. No, he's one of the wise men, though, as well. You cast Fergie as God, and then you slot Mike Phelan in a wise man role. And then you just got the rest of them playing assorted barnyard animals, which I seem to remember is the leftover roles in that particular festive scene.
And Anderson would come along and eat all the myrrh.
First of all, we need to identify what myrrh is. Never really been sure.
No, neither do I.
All right, well, I guess that just about wraps it up for another festive edition of the Rantcast. We've just got time for something very special before we play you out.
I listen Rantcast, my only Rantcast. It makes me happy when skies are grey. Oh, Ed and Paul, you are the legends, so please don't take my Rantcast away.
Oh, Anton, you've touched our hearts and made our day, and thank you also for the very nice messages that you sent us about the Rantcast. It's much appreciated. So on that joyously cheery note, Ed, it's time to make some predictions.
I think United will win at Swansea 2-1. I think it will be a comfortable win over Newcastle 3-0.
Oh my goodness. I think a draw at Swansea, and I think we'll beat Newcastle 2-1.
Here's another prediction for you. I think Ronaldo will score from somewhere near the halfway line when he comes to Old Trafford.
No! It's like a horrible nightmare. So we'll be back during the festive period. We're not having any time off or any more interruptions to the normal schedule of the show. We'll put up another Rantcast on Friday the 28th, where we'll look back at those two games and look forward to the games coming up. If you want to get us in the meantime to wish us a happy Christmas or for any other reason.
It's my birthday on Saturday.
Oh yeah, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear Edward, happy birthday to you. I know you can't wish for a finer present than me singing to you over the phone, eh Ed?
It does it for me every time. There's a tear in the eye.
Yeah, so Ed's birthday and then Christmas. At United Rant for Ed to wish him a happy birthday. At UTD Rantcast for me to ask me to please politely stop singing. I've been really good. I haven't sung for weeks. So follow me on Twitter if you want to see the fruits of that. You can hit us up at the show page by leaving a comment on the post about the show, or it'd be very helpful to us if you could be so kind as to rate us or leave us a nice review on iTunes.
Down with this sort of thing, innit?
Yeah, or, up with this sort of thing also, that would be good. And finally, if you want to give us a massive Christmas present because somehow you've inherited £1 billion just before Christmas, then unitedrant.co.uk/donate.
Very good. Thank you for all of that. It's been a great year so far. We've still got one more show before the turn of the year, and what better Christmas present than 2 United victories?
Bring it on, please, Santa Claus.
And we'll see you next week.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.